We did a chip design, which was a 8-bit real-time multiplier. During that time, when I graduated, there were only 2 companies in India who were anywhere close to chip design. So one was Semiconductor Complex in Chandigarh, and one was Texas Instruments in Bangalore. Sometimes a lot of things happen with destiny, right? Not with the best of intent. But I also realized public sector is not my cup of tea. There is no performance-based growth. It's all time-bound. 80s Infosys didn't grow that much. Infosys growth really started from 1991 post-liberalization.
आपके ज्वाइन करने के बाद Greetings everyone. Today we have with us Mr. Rajiv Kucchal, one of our founders and trustees at Plaksha. He is a general partner at Exfinity Ventures. He played a very instrumental role in shaping up the Infosys BPM, which was also known as Progeon. He's worked more than 16 years as a founding member in Infosys. He comes with the experience of more than 23 years in IIT, BPO, ITES services. And now let's go deep into the podcast. Very great to have you on this podcast, sir.
Thank you, Shivang. Thanks for having me here.
So, you were mentioning in the class, sir, that, your hostel days shaped you very much and you learned lots of entrepreneurial lessons from your hostel days. So, how was it, sir? Tell us something about that.
So, I will say hostel is where I discovered my leadership, so to speak. And it starts in a small, very simple ways where, when you come in, you're full of enthusiasm. And I somehow had this key, now that I've got admitted to IIT, हो गया पढ़ाई तो हो गई ठीक है now let us what else can we do, so full of enthusiasm. So I got involved in a lot of student activities by default. And when I came into second year, we started doing, so one of the things we found, so I used to live in Old Delhi, and in Old Delhi you get down and everything is available, right? And found that in hostel, though we were in the middle of the city, but night time if somebody needs or wants something, nothing is available there. So we did a small survey and found that the biggest thing which people need in middle of the night or whatever is stationery. So there was a cafeteria. So food was available. There was a canteen open till 2 a.m.
बच्चे तब भी रात में देर रात पढ़ाई करते हैं.
That doesn't change. But I have run out of copy, I have run out of pen, pencil, whatever. I have run out of those. And if you are somewhat familiar with Delhi, there is a road called Nai Sadak. And Nai Sadak is the book and stationery market.
Daryaganj or udhar?
It's from Chandni Chowk, there is a road called Nai Sadak. And because I used to go almost every other weekend to Delhi, to my home, and Nai Sadak was not very far, I said, what, I can buy it from there and stock it. And people want, they can take it.
Right.
So I was bouncing off the idea with our warden. And warden thought it's a good idea. And there was one small room which was available. And he says, why don't you use this room?
Right.
And we said, okay, we'll start using. So, of course, we ran into the first problem, which I was also telling compliance problem, which was that now I am using IIT infrastructure for running my business. Right. So we had to then say, well, it's not my business. It's for the hostel. And it was not in my name, it was in the student's body name. So, and the profits of that will go to the student welfare. Right? So, all that. So, I'm not doing for my profit. Which was never the intent. I mean, not that I was looking at becoming rich, but coming from the background we are, the money, everything has to make money. So, we started that. And it was stupendously successful. We used to open, we used to finish our dinner. I roped in another friend of mine and then one more. So between 3 of us, we'll make sure at least one of us is there from 9 p.m. till 10:30 p.m. And we tried to dissuade people not to come in after that.
Okay.
But now the people actually after dinner is when they will start
studying.
They will go play table tennis or whatever, and then 10 o'clock is when they will start and suddenly realize I don't have this. And by that time all the shops are closed. So they will come here and buy. Though it was strictly meant for our hostel, but it also meant sometimes people from other hostel will come, but they have to come through some friend of theirs in our hostel.
Right.
And started using. So my hostel name was Aravali. We called it Ara Stores.
Okay, got it.
So that is how that journey started. Then I was very involved with the student publication because my father was came from the printing background. So I was very aware of publishing. So of course I got involved with the student magazine called Pulse. Then in the third year, we said, there's a lot of belonging which happens at a hostel level.
Right.
More than the institute level. So we said, let us start something at a hostel level. And we started something called RA Times.
Again, Aravali se.
Aravali. It was all Aravali things. So
Maybe है Pulse magazine or RA Times. Are these
Pulse
still?
is there. RA Times, I don't think is there.
Huh.
So with a friend of mine who was very good at writing, we decided to launch it. Again, it was hugely successful just in the terms of the readership.
ठीक है.
Of course, I had to go and get some budget from the house secretary.
Right.
But it wasn't a very large amount which was there. So, I remember when I became house secretary in the final year. And when you're a house secretary, you're also an invitee to the Students' Affair Council.
Right.
And those days, that budget from the institute for student welfare was very small because it was frozen some 15 years back and it was some 10,000 rupees or something. It was like very ridiculous amount. So everything else had to come from hostel mess budget, as we used to call it.
अच्छा. वहाँ से जो बच जाता था ऐसा
नहीं. So what happens, whatever you spend and end of it, it's all put together and you pay it as a hostel charges or mess charges. It was called mess charges, but it was hostel expense.
Got it.
Right? So basically students are paying for it. So there is some discussion, I don't know what triggered it started, that there is a lot of apathy among students who participate in various activities. And I don't know what happened. I just suddenly said, but of course there'll be apathy. The most energy is in hostel.
Right.
And look at what is the stupid budget you give. And of course, director was not aware of the budget. So we should do something about it. And that budget went, I think, from 10,000 to 1 lakh plus. So, in the terms of spotting that opportunity, this is the time I can bring out and raise this. And the fact that you see it making a difference, that really works towards giving you that confidence and, So I will say I discovered my leadership in IIT. Some other things, we did, for example, maintenance is always an issue. And you have to negotiate, and then I remember our building manager, he said, if you can do something to get a director to visit the hostel, then a lot of things will get done.
Right.
And this happened, July is when the college reopened, we were there.
Right.
So we have been thinking about doing inter-hostel quiz competition, India quiz competition on 15th August. We said, why not invite director for it? And, have teams in which there is one faculty member and then 2-3 students and do it. So we invited director. And, 15th August is a good time. It's off for everyone. Everybody's at home.
Right.
And we director, dean, and our housemaster, some senior profs. And they all agreed to come. And when they agreed to come, 2-3 days before that, the entire maintenance crew was there to make sure, whatever we wanted get done. So, how do you navigate a government system? At the end of the day, it was a government system.
Right.
Very early days, we learned on how do you navigate and get things done. The good thing about IIT is resources is not an issue. Not as much an issue. Yeah, funding. It's not an issue. So after that, it really becomes a challenge is how do you make the system work? And how do you achieve what you want to achieve in that system? And I think these are very, very useful lessons I learned during my 4-year in IIT and especially in the hostel.
Wow.
I mean, I can go on, but
Definitely.
I'm sure
And you were doing something around the lines of VLSI, or then you chose not to continue that.
So what happened was my specialization was in VLSI, like you said, and there were 5 of us who did 2 projects in final year in the VLSI. Of course, what we did was we did a chip design, which was 8-bit multiplier, real-time multiplier. When you do multiplication, you have to normally store the numbers.
Right.
And that slows down. So the whole idea is that the 8 bits come from both sides and 16 bits go out the same time.
Right.
So there is actually some Vedic mathematical formula which is actually nothing but simple algebra.
Right.
So we designed a chip, but of course you cannot fabricate it, so it can't be tested. But we did the full chip design. During that time when I graduated, there were only 2 companies in India who were anywhere close to chip design.
Who were what?
So one was Semiconductor Complex in Chandigarh, and one was Texas Instruments in Bangalore.
Right.
And TI had just started a few months back. They had not started campus placements. Semiconductor Complex did come. So out of the 5 people, 3 went abroad. One girl, her grandparents were in Bangalore, so she went and joined TI. She went to TI office, she got the job. I got a job with the semiconductor complex. But unfortunately, it was also the time when Punjab was seeing a lot of disturbance.
Because of the political or the...
No, we had this terrorist problem which was going on, right, at that time.
Right.
Separatism movement. This is 86, right? So 84 was when Indira Gandhi was assassinated and when the whole Golden Temple thing happened. It was during that period. So my parents, especially my mother, who normally won't say anything, just freaked out and says, no, you can't go to Punjab.
Said Blue Star or wo sab tab...
That all happened in 84.
Acha.
Blue Star was in 84 and this is 86.
Acha, theek hai.
So it was still continuing. The problem was still continuing. So
Mummy ne mana kar diya.
Mummy ne mana kar diya. So then in VLSI, in semiconductors, there's nothing else which is available. So then you go look for what you can. And I was very clear I wanted to work in India at that time, right? So that clarity was there. And it took me 2 months to find a job. And ultimately, I found a job with one public sector called Telecommunication Consultants, and that's where I joined. And that's how telecom became my field. So, sometimes a lot of things happen with destiny, right? Not with the best of intent. And I don't regret it at all. I think telecom is a great area. I also entered at a very good time. We worked on what's called message switching system, it was called, which is, in some sense, was forerunner to emails.
Right.
And
hota kya tha message switching system mein? What
you do in email. You know how it works. When you send a mail to somebody, it actually goes to a server.
Right.
Server stores it and then finds where it has to be sent and sends it there. Right. So it is not instant messaging. Because when you do WhatsApp,
directly,
it goes directly, right? And server may store it for whatever, but or if you are not available, it's not instant messaging. Email you may get after a little time. It may retry sending you. So we did this for Indian Telegraph Network, because when you're sending a telegram from one place to another,
there has to be some...
Yeah. So it was called Store and Forward Message Switching System. That was the full form of that entire thing. So I was very fortunate again to get onto that, work in that area. And that's how my journey in the software and telecom started.
Wow. Wait, so you joined Infosys when the revenues were $1 million.
That's right.
And the previous year was something around 18 to 19, close to 18 to 19 billion dollars. How were your early days? Tell us about who interviewed you for Infosys and how was it?
So I joined this company, and I have to admit that I got a very good exposure. But I also realized public sector is not my cup of tea.
Why so?
Because there is no performance-based growth. It's all time-bound. And, when you are young, you're also more impatient.
Right.
So I was impatient. This won't do. After 3 years, we had a 3 years bond. So you have to stay for 3 years. Those days, you used to have employment bonds. It's later on, it was declared illegal. But it was very common that time.
कब हुआ था मतलब कब हटे थे bonds होना?
I think late 90s.
Late 90s.
It continued in many companies for quite a while. Even Infosys used to have, for freshers, a lot of companies used to have bonds. So I was looking out, and I have no idea actually how I applied to Infosys. I got a job, I got a interview letter, and I was getting a free ticket to Bangalore. I said, why not?
ठीक है.
घूम के आते हैं. Again, that time, these things excite you. So I went to Bangalore, and I quite liked the way the interview went and the way interviewers were questioning me, grilling me, cross-questioning me, challenging me. I thought it looks like a interesting place. I was also very keen to join a small company. So my whole thing was I would like to join where I can grow with the company, and rather than joining a large company where I may get lost. So I did get other jobs with good companies, well-known names. And Infosys actually offered me a salary which was lower than what I was getting. And, but then, I said, that's where I would like to join. Of course, later on, once after I joined, I realized the person who interviewed me was the CEO of the company.
Mr.
Narayan Murthy. He's now a legend, and of course, I think rightly so. But he was the one who interviewed me.
Wow.
And I can tell you that he can still grill you like that.
Oh my God.
You go meet him and he will grill you. He's still quite like that.
Do you remember what did he ask you that time?
So he was asking me around my message switching system only. What are the things? It was technical. I mean, not coding wise, but in the terms of the requirement, how do you do this, how do you do that? It was all around that.
You joined this in which year?
So I joined Infosys in early 1990.
और ये शुरू कब हुआ था Infosys, I believe?
81.
81.
So 80s Infosys didn't grow that much. Infosys growth really started from 1991 post-liberalization.
आपके ज्वाइन करने के बाद. हाँ.
You know, like this is that it worked out, right? Being at the right place at the right time and do the right things and, you have stories to tell your grandchildren. So, one of those.
और कितने लोग थे तब जब आपने ज्वाइन करा था हॉस्टल?
So I was 118th employee.
I remember that. Huh?
Yeah. Of course, I remember my employee number. So I was 118th employee of Infosys. So there were that many people.
And what was your first role? What were you?
So they asked me, would I like to work on something which sends you abroad, or would you like to be in an Indian project? I wanted to stay in India at that time, and I said I will stay in India.
ठीक है.
And it may look a little strange now because Infosys is not linked to it, but we actually had a division which was making hardware products. We had a Telex machine.
I don't know about it. Can you tell us?
Telex machine was like Telegram in some ways. And during early 90s, all the company transactions used to happen on fax or Telex machine. And fax means you write and the image used to go. But Telex is something which you do, and it was admissible in the court of law, the Telexes. So that's why a lot of people used to use Telexes.
And what replaced Telexes?
Emails.
Emails.
So they had a Telex machine.
तब Infosys बनाता था ये.
And they had a manufacturing. So they had a hardware, they had a manufacturing. And then, of course, they had a software division. So, but if you look at it, Wipro had a hardware division. HCL had a hardware division. So it was not unusual.
ठीक है.
Right? So we had, and it was shut down few years later. So that's what I started working on. So I was working in embedded systems, so, at a very low level. That's what I used to work on. Then after 2 years, we were getting a customer which was in the telecom space. And that's when I thought maybe I should just go out and see what it is outside. I've been here. Plus, I think by that time it was very clear Infosys is not going to go ahead with this division. They're going to shut it down.
Because they want scale and...
But by that time, when you are young, you may try many things. But then you have to decide what you will work on.
Right.
And then you come out of the rest. And by that time, the software business had started to take off. And the whole idea is let's focus on that and shut down the hardware, which was not fitting into the new focus. So I went to this client in Canada, which was a telecom client, and I and a friend of mine, so we became the first 2 guys to go there. And that was again a very interesting experience because when we were going, we had to work in this 2 technologies, C++ and X Windows, of which we had no clue. C++ was new anyway, but we could buy a book, read, get a compiler from somewhere. You have to remember it was very difficult to get a compiler. Okay. There's no internet. You can't download anything. You have to go buy a software. And a C++ compiler will cost you some like 40,000-50,000 rupees.
Those times. Oh my God.
So it's like humongous amount. The reason you have to do all this jugaad, right? So another division which Infosys was shutting down, they also used to sell software, external software products. They used to sell C++ compilers. They had a division which used to sell some software. So now those to provide tech support, they needed something. So I raised my hand and said, I'll provide C++ support. मेरे computer पे install कर दो. So they installed on computer. So that's how we learned C++. But X Windows, we couldn't even get a book. And a lot of you may not be able to relate to X Windows, but that was the Unix, it was on Unix, the technology to create interactive software. So it was, X Windows was the basis.
Graphical user?
Yeah, for graphical user.
ठीक है.
Right? Because Unix is very text-driven.
Right.
That time, a lot of things, even MS-DOS was very text-driven.
Got it.
Right? So the Windows itself was...
graphical and...
because MS Windows itself came in 94, 95. Right? So it was all very text-based.
And which year is this?
This is 92.
92.
So we go there and then we go to a person who's in the same team who's quite friendly. And we tell him we want to refer to the section Windows manual. can you just give us the manual?
Huh.
He said, yeah, sure, which volume? And I remember I and my friend, we both looked at each other. And then we saw it as bookshelves. And one volume 7 was the thickest. He says, volume 7. I said, yeah, sure. He took it out and gave it to us. As our luck would have had it, it was the right one. So we spent next few days just quickly going through that. And then, you have to wing it along the way, how you do. But it was a very, very interesting journey. I mean, this customer then became the largest customer of Infosys. We learned a lot of things from this customer because they were a large company. We were a very small company. But how do you operate at that scale? I think we learned a lot from them.
Got it. So please, yeah. So you spoke about catching a lot of opportunities in your life early on. Identifying those and betting on those in the class. But tell us something, some opportunities that you felt कि यार ये miss हो गया, and then you later realize कि यार ये कर लेना चाहिए था. And what were the learnings from that?
So actually, it's a harder question to answer. Because I don't look back on that. So I'll give you an example. So when I started my angel investment, I was introduced to this one founder who had achieved a certain scale and was trying to, do whatever. And I spent about 1 hour with him and gave him, because I have worked in a lot of scaling up, right, from beginning and on what he can do to do that. And he actually came back to me 2 weeks later. He came and met me. And he says, I'm actually raising a round and I would like you to invest in this round and I want you to be involved with me.
Okay.
Now, what happened by that time, I kind of formed some thesis of where I want to invest. Now, my gut feel is saying, or my heart is saying he's a good guy and, I should go with it and it's a good area.
Right.
But it's not fitting into my thesis at all. So finally, I told him, look, let me not get carried away. You want me to come, help you, do whatever. I'm always available, right? Don't worry about it. And but let me not invest.
Yes.
Now, the company did very well. If I'd made that investment, I would have been probably a lot more involved and, I would have financially also benefited. But the point is, when I think back, I say, no, but the decision was right at that point of time. You can always look back and say, oh, hindsight is 20/20. But at the end of the day, the decision was right at that point of time.
And which company was this?
RedBus.
Okay, Mr. Kashyap.
Fanish.
Acha, got it.
Fanindra Sama.
ठीक है. I guess Anurag Kashyap, not Anurag.
He joined later as
got it.
As a professional CEO and a co-founder.
Got it. But you came to Chandigarh around 2000, right?
So I've been in Chandigarh in multiple stints. So one is that, which I told you when I joined my first job. Actually, that message switching project was being done along with the company right in Mohali. So I actually ended up coming here. So most of 1987, I was in Mohali.
And how was Mohali, Chandigarh around that time?
It was a very sleepy place. Mohali hardly existed. And Chandigarh was a beautiful place. I mean, it still is. Very little traffic, nice big houses. I mean, this is unheard of, whatever this is an unknown area to me. So if you ask me, how was this area? I don't even know what this area was.
Nothing, barren land.
Yeah, this would have been a farming land.
Farming land, okay.
Yeah. So I was there in 1987. Then I came back in 2001 when I was setting up Infosys Chandigarh Center. So what happened in Infosys, I was one of the senior most North Indians. And there was a lot of, lot of North Indians that started joining. And they were lobbying, why don't we have a center in North? Infosys had set up centers in Pune, Mangalore, Bhubaneswar. So we had in, East, West, South, but we didn't have in North. So I used to talk to the founders and they will say, we'll consider, but there was no movement. Now, it so happened that in 2000, all the things used to run under a government scheme called Software Technology Parks of India, STP scheme, which gave certain tax benefits both on the custom side and on the income tax side. And in 2000, in the budget, government announced the sunset of that scheme.
इस टाइम के बाद खत्म हो जाएगी.
And this is applicable to companies as on 31st March. And budgets are done or were done at that time on 28th February. I still remember 1st March, all of us were called and we were all asked to identify places where we will set up the centers. So 3 places got identified. So I immediately, of course, lobbied for North. And because I had been lobbying, there was immediate, we should do one in North. And we were not very sure about Delhi Gurgaon area because we need a lot of land.
वहाँ पर
Whether
मिली
we'll get it there or not. So we suggested Chandigarh because, again, I had a comfort with Chandigarh, and this is, Chandigarh is a good place, and we should go there. And then Hyderabad and Mysore were the two other centers which were decided upon. So it's even by Infosys standards, I think it was very interesting. 28th February or 1st March, by 9 a.m. the decision was taken. And 13th March, we had all these centers operational. It was just incredible because, we had to find a place, do up some infrastructure, import computers in that.
How you pulled it off in 13 days?
So one good thing is that by then, Infosys was very good at creating infrastructure. Right? We had done, because we were growing it so rapidly. So overall, we knew how to create infrastructure very quickly. And we had developed vendors to do that. But I will say even by that standard, it was quite amazing. We here in Chandigarh, we actually got one factory. Government was very supportive. So we spoke to that time Punjab government in Mohali, and they were very, very helpful. They immediately, one of them said, look, there is this one factory I know which is available. The factory itself was quite bad, but there was an MD room in front which was quite big. So we said we'll start from here.
Got it.
So we got that room cleaned up. We put some 10 computers there. We brought in some guys from Bangalore, asked some customers so some new contracts have to come. You can't transfer existing contracts. So we identified some of the new projects which were starting. We always have some projects starting.
Right.
And we convinced those customers, why don't we do it from, Chandigarh. And we got the people who are going to work here so that the customer doesn't see the difference.
Right.
And meanwhile, getting the connectivity and all that kind of fell in place. So that's how the Chandigarh journey started. And in 2000, I was doing a lot of back and forth. But then I decided that let me shift there because it's back and forth is not working. So I actually shifted end of 2000 to Chandigarh and was here for 1 year.
And when did you decide कि यार अब ये सब नहीं करना है? I would like to be on my own and start something else. How was the journey of OnMobile started?
So I don't think I was ever I want to do something on my own. I never had that risk appetite. That I want to start something of my own. I'm ready to risk something which is young, which is new, done by someone. But I think starting completely by myself, I just somehow never had that. Even today, I won't say that I have that risk appetite. So when I was this Chandigarh center, I was used to handle telecom and internet products.
Right.
And we were the heroes, right? We were the stars, growing at 100%, 120%. And when 2001 .com crash happened, we took the huge hit. Literally we had customers where people went to customer site to work Monday morning and they found it is locked and everything inside the office has been auctioned on their weekend. We didn't even know. So, there were scenarios like that. So
India में नहीं होता ऐसा.
No, this is not India. This is global. All our customers were international customers. So we were, and we had built a management team to handle that growth. So there was a management bandwidth in our team which was available. And it so happened that in one of the journeys back from Bangalore, and you had to come via Delhi because there were no flights to Chandigarh. So my boss was there and we started chatting. And that time I had kind of decided that I will, Infosys is becoming a little big. This group is becoming big. Again, there was an itch to do something. So he asked, he says, a lot of customers are saying we should be doing BPO. And that was a kind of new thing which was emerging. So would I be interested in looking at that? He needs somebody to explore and start and all. And I quite like the idea. I says, you know what, it's still under Infosys, but it's new. And when I told you after IIT, it took me 2 months to find a job. By 90s, that problem was gone. There'll be queue of people in IITs, tier 2 colleges also. But the other disciplines still didn't have that many opportunities. And I thought BPO could be very good to provide those. So I said yes to him. And then I transitioned out of what I was doing. And we started Infosys BPO. So that was again a very fascinating journey. And then, that happened for a few years. And then I wanted to move back to tech. And again, the whole became that, should I go back to Infosys again and look for something new or what else? But fortunately, it so happened I ran into my bachelor days roommates in Bangalore. I met him and we chatted, and then he asked me, so I told him, yeah, this is what I'm thinking. And then he immediately jumped and says, look, we are looking for a COO. And why don't you come join us? And then that to me was a no-brainer. Just ticked a lot of boxes. OnMobile was also Infosys incubating. I knew they have done well and they need to scale. And I was going back to tech. So, a lot of things happened. And then I joined OnMobile.
So 197 was a competitor to OnMobile.
So OnMobile had, they are the pioneers in this whole value-added services space in India. So very early on, they kind of got on to operators that how do you earn more money other than airtime? And by providing services on top of that, right? So those are value-added services.
Right.
And they were the big dadas, right? And they were the big boys there. A very innovative company. And their ability to conceptualize, build scale was just amazing. Very dynamic. So we obviously had other competitors, when the market is growing and there's so much, you will always have competitors snapping. 197 being one of them, right? I mean, there were many others. And they will kind of figure out that in this space, either where we are not or where we are a little weak, and try to get into that space. Because we were the dominant guys.
Right.
And most of the time then when I joined was going in fending that off. So if we are not in that, we should go there. If we are weak in this, we should strengthen it. But we need to maintain the market share.
Hey, tell us one thing. So for example, how do you allocate resources in a situation? For example, you are good at something and you are not good at something. Now, what will your approach be? Because I am good at something, I need to, double down on this and, improve this. Or you would say, nahi, because I am weak at this, I should give more focus here. So when you have resources, how do you allocate focus between your strength or the weakness? Where do you apply?
So I think that is where you need to really sit back and think on what is your strategy. So in this case, what happened was what we were good at. Within that, there were places we were not good at. Right? So,
okay.
So for example, I'll give you an example. One of our big success was cricket scores. Now, it may sound absurd today, but that time we were the leaders in providing cricket scores on phones. Right?
The person would call or message or...
So you will get an SMS. So that was one. But we also had a near live streaming. We can't do live streaming because of the BCCI this thing. But he had what we call just few minutes away streaming. In those days, many people, especially in hinterlands or in traveling thing, they are okay to get 1 minute late or 2 minutes late information, but they were not getting any information, right? So it was very popular. But we were doing now to build that at a scale, you have to keep on doing many things.
Right.
And now we were taking resources out from here and trying to do something else. So in this case, our decision was there are certain products which have a life. And we are good at. This is our differentiation. So we will become the best in those. And this is an area we will focus on.
Right.
And we will actually get this market share obsession. It took some effort, it took some convincing, but when it finally happened, that's what we did. And because of that, we were able to scale many of these really well. The reason I'm saying is that sometimes, and many companies what I've seen, there is a cash cow, which means their existing product is selling. But there is something which seems to have a future.
Right.
Now this needs investment. And many times it goes, where do I put the money?
Right.
So you have to say which has the future life and what is your strategy. If you say this is going to be my strategy, then you have to say how do I invest in this and make it grow. So there is no one strategy, but what is very clear is you should make a conscious choice. You should not flit back and forth.
Got it.
Based on the crisis of the day. Because then you will always have a crisis of the day.
So true. And how was Exfinity started?
So I started with my angel investments after OnMobile. Early days, like I mentioned, RedBus and all. And I had actually gone to meet Mr. Mohandas, who was our CFO.
Got it. Manipal and...
Yeah.
Right.
So he said that they are looking at starting a VC fund, and he asked me if I would like to be part of it. I says I was kind of aware of the game, but not as a VC.
And how did you get connected with Mr. Mohandas Pai?
He was in Infosys. No? He was
Okay, got it. So you were working together.
Yeah, of course. Many years. He was the chairman of Progeon.
Got it.
When I was in Kucchal, he was actually the chairman.
Got it. And he wanted to start a...
So he wanted to set up a VC fund.
Okay.
And tech-based fund with a tech as a thing. And that is when I got involved. And then the Exfinity started. And we said we are going to... So one is we said we are going to raise money in India. We are going to raise Indian money.
तो Indian LLP से
From Indian LPs.
ऐसे हाँ ठीक है
Most of the funds were raising money abroad. And it was still a new concept for people to invest into.
ऐसा कैसे सोचा आपने कि इंडिया से हम पैसा उठाएंगे? And you found out कि यार इंडिया में पैसा होगा इतना?
It was okay. One was that we didn't have a choice.
हाँ.
We didn't have a choice because if you want to raise money outside India,
हाँ.
you need to have an investment and exit experience. And all of us have run companies. Right? We have no investment and exit. We have, we don't have like startup investment and exit. So one was that. The second thing is, we were all India guys ultimately. So we said, यहाँ पे convince करते हैं लोगों को.
ठीक है.
Let us go and convince.
हाँ.
And Mr. Mohandas is a great sales guy, and he can throw numbers at you.
Okay.
So he will go meet people and says, so much of wealth has been generated in India in last 10 years in the startup ecosystem. But 90% of it is going to outside India because, they are the guys who have invested and they are the beneficiaries. We are not the beneficiaries.
Right.
So we should invest. And a lot of people will get fired up.
True.
So, and it's true. It's not saying anything wrong.
Right.
So we said we will raise money from India. So first 2 funds we actually raised money from India. Third fund we also have gone out and raised money. But also has a very big India component. So we raised money in India. Second is we decided we are all people who have sold to enterprises. We actually don't understand consumer space. So, and there was a lot of investment which was going at that time in consumer space.
This was around what time?
This is 2014-15.
ठीक है. हाँ.
It was almost like peak
Start. Yeah.
of
On this
investments in that space. So we said that, and we will do deep tech. So this fund was set up with B2B deep tech as its theme.
Got it.
And that's how Exfinity started.
So tell us about some great founders that Exfinity has bagged.
Actually, multiple of them,
Huh.
So in the first fund, we had a company called Mo Engage. And unfortunately, we had to exit because the fund was getting over. I don't think any one of us wanted to exit. But they built some extremely good tool to help people who are building apps to bring the user engagement and monetize it. And, when you meet sometimes some of them, they are not flamboyant, they're very grounded, down to earth, but they know how to go and sell. And most of them are very quick. So we use India as almost like a market to try it out and then go global. One thing which we have seen changing is that we are now able to even market in India and get a good price point, which was not there earlier. So that's one positive development which has happened. But I will still say that a lot of our products have global market and still, if they scale, they grow. In the second fund, we invested with this guys who actually dropped out in their final year. And we actually had a great angst whether we should invest or are we encouraging college dropouts or whatever. But they had dropped out, they had started. So we decided to back them. And, they were doing something in the gaming space.
What company was this?
So that time it was called Absentia.
Huh.
Now they have renamed themselves and they're called Pixis.
Acha, got it.
So they actually started by developing a platform which game developers can use. And the whole idea is they will learn how they're developing and make their life easier. There are many repetitive things in the gaming and stuff like that. They found it very difficult to sell to that community. And they actually almost nearly died. And, we had to put in some bridge funding to keep them going. But they figured out that one thing which is getting some traction is how to, in gaming you have these monetization opportunities. And they had figured out how do you identify those, monetization opportunities. And that was one thing which was getting traction and people were willing to pay for it. So that's what they focused on. But then they realized actually you can use this across the spectrum for anything, not just in games, but also in the social media. And then they came onto social media, and the first guy they did for, the click-through rate, which typically is 1% or less.
That jumped
to almost close to 40%. So that gave them huge. And now, they have gone abroad, gone to US, they're growing up the market in the rest of the world. So it is very heartening to see such young guys being able to pivot so quickly, being able to react so quickly and able to think the scale and, have that ambition and then be able to achieve. We have some more guys like that in our portfolio. But one thing which I can tell you is overall, from 2014 when we started to now, the quality of the deals we see coming in
has been
very high. The quality. The numbers is one part, but there's also like quality.
It's improving, you mean?
It's a lot better.
Can you tell us difference? Can you example ki aisa hua karti thi and now what's the quality? What are ideas?
So, initially we got a lot of things which were around SaaS play. And we kind of avoided them. I don't want to take names because...
Right, obviously.
But, if I look at the first fund, the kind of people we got, and now what we are getting, the level of awareness and confidence, and it's not bluster. So it's not that, I can do this. They have thought through how they will go about doing it, what is required, what's happening in this particular space. So you have people who come, for example, in the mobility space, or the battery space, the energy space.
Right.
Or there is one person who is creating the, a platform for media analytics. Now, a lot of people are doing media analytics. He's creating a platform for that, which will make it easier to build on that. When you talk to them, the depth they have is just so high at very young age. And then the breadth they have, because they've seen where all it can be done, what can be done. That is very heartening. So it has been, that's one thing which has been very, very encouraging for us.
But tell us, for example, RedBus was in your NT portfolio. Why did you not invest in RedBus at that time? What was the red flag? Yaar, iski wajah se mujhe nahi karna.
No, I told you there was no red flag. I had a thesis. You see what happened when I got into it? A lot of people will come to you. Will you invest? Will you invest? Short of making random decisions, you had to develop some thesis. So what I decided at that time was I will do very early stage. I will not come later.
And why was that?
Because I'm an angel investor, so I want to come early. Right? So there's no point coming later. The second I had was that it has to have a social impact, because I was looking at social enterprises. Or there has to be a strong technology angle. Right? These were the two things which I was looking. RedBus was not early stage. In fact, this was their Series B or whatever. It was later, much later stage. He was doing an institutional raise. And typically when you do a VC fundraise, they say, I'll give you 70%, 30% you go raise from somebody. Like that. So he had investors. But this is one of them I can not take, but I'll take from you. So it was not fitting that. It had some social impact, but it was not the same. And it had some tech, but it was not the same. So, if I go put parameters, it was one of the rare occasions where I didn't go by gut feel. A lot of times I go by gut feel as well, as much as I go by data. But it was one of the times I didn't go by gut feel. But, when I think back, it was the right decision at that time. So, got it.
And what are some other interesting NT portfolios that you had in which you, missed the opportunity or felt like, we want to learn the thesis change and the learning mindset. What was your learning? What was your mindset before and after?
I did it very hard. Like I told you, many times I just move on, so I don't even look back.
Right.
But in Exfinity First Fund, I remember we looked at a company, and then though also you just move on, right? But recently, it came
Huh.
that company has exited some pretty good valuation.
What company was that?
I don't know any.
Okay, got it.
And we were wondering, but it was some time back.
Huh.
And the reason why did we say no? Because we had liked it and all.
Huh.
Now, what happened that quite a few of our GPs,
Huh.
our Infosys, Wipro, all very top.
Huh.
And they're all very governance related.
Right.
And I think in the first fund, especially when we looked at it, we found some governance issues. Now, what happened over a time, you realize that startups actually, it's not that the intent was bad, just that they don't give the attention there.
Right.
So we later on, of course, started helping companies clean that up or put it as a precondition. Before you come to us, clean this up.
And what are these governance issues that, are
They have made promises for shares to various people.
Oh.
And some of them are on piece of paper. They have not filed their tax returns. They have not submitted PF on time. Employment offers letters are not in place. So, you will find things like that.
And investors want to stay away with these companies.
I won't say now we don't stay away. Now we tell them you have to clean this up.
Yes, okay.
And we help them clean that. And only then you will get our money, and all of them do. And unless there is something we find the intent is bad. And sometimes during the time we realize there's a bad intent. And that's why it's not cleaning up. Then of course we move on. But I think I don't think it happened because of this company. When we looked at few, we realized that we cannot expect every company to have the Wipro Infosys quality of governance on day one. Right. So let us help them clean up and then we will come in. But we want a clean company.
And how do you think, what makes Infosys and all these companies being so good at their governance? Is it all coming from the leadership and their values? Or is it something that,
It's leadership and their values. There's nothing else. I think they were, if you ask me, the biggest differentiation was that they had a very, very strong focus. I can talk about Infosys. For Mr. Murthy, he is, not that he's the owner of Infosys.
Right.
For him, he is the trustee of shareholder wealth.
Wow.
So the company belongs to shareholders.
And he's
also a shareholder.
Huh.
But he's the trustee of, when he was there, he had that whole mindset that I'm a trustee of the shareholder. And then, what happened is when your governance is strong, transparency is strong, you actually start seeing benefits of it. So you find people trust you.
Right.
And when they trust you, the customers trust you, the markets trust you, they give you a premium. Then you say, there is a business case.
Right.
So there's actually no business case for not being opaque or have poor governance. There's a business case for good governance. And I think what they did in 90s was create a business case for that. So a lot of companies realize that if I have a good corporate governance, I can actually scale better, I can get better valuation in the market, we'll get a better premium. Raising resources becomes easier. People want to join companies which are respected.
Right.
So the things become easier.
So all these people you've worked very closely with, tell us one thing that has, made a huge impact on your life or you have picked up from the leadership of Infosys.
Oh, I can go on forever on that. But I think one of the things which you realize, with Mr. Murthy, of course, there are many of them. Incredible thing that if you have to be world class, you have to be world class in everything. And I remember him once we had this management council meeting going on and somebody was served the water. And he called that fellow and said, the glass is not clean. So he went, washed and brought back the glass. He says, no, it's washed, it's not clean. And everybody is, more important discussion than glass. And then he picks up that glass and says, this, if we have to be world class, this glass has to be the cleanest glass in the world. There can be no glass cleaner than this. And then you realize actually that message is not just for that guy, it's for all of us. Right? That you have to do whatever you have to do. You have to do in everything. So when a new facility will come up, when our first new facility came up,
in Bangalore?
In Electronic City, Mr. Murthy used to go to a different toilet every day to make sure that all toilets are well maintained and not just this chairman's toilet, right? So I think the fact that you give that attention to each and every small thing becomes very, very important. And that kind of percolates, and it inspires you. It also makes you put your head down, because then you're not carrying away by one thing. You have to look at all the aspects. And then speed of decision making. If you have to go to him, you better go. He doesn't have time or patience. So very fast decision making. I think he's just so quick. What decision you want me to take? Just tell me.
Give us some example.
I mean, so you will go to him with a problem, and you're narrating, and then he will be losing his patience and says, and then he'll say, what is it that you want me to do? Says, no, this is what. So, okay, let me give you, now I remember an example. So, early days, people, which projects they go on, right? You have to decide. So, Infosys got one customer, and suddenly that guy called my boss, who was there at that time, and said, do you have few people? He says, yeah, I think I have. And he promised him. And I came to know, and I said, wait a minute, I kept him for these projects, whatever, So there was a bit of a conflict. So then I got very worked up. So I went to Nandan. I says, what is this? How is this working? So I was cribbing. He says, no, what do you want me to do? I says, can you tell me how this will not happen? This is not right. He says, that is a problem to be solved.
Right.
Okay. So he said that I can't solve that problem. So he went and called Mr. Murthy. I says, we need to solve this problem. He says, yeah. So you'll form a manpower allocation. So the point of the decision not taken.
Got it.
But he is not a person whom you can go and give a story. You don't give a story.
You give the bottom line.
This is the problem which has to be solved, and then it's okay.
Got it.
You do. So Mr. Shubulal is such a data-oriented guy. How do you look at that data? How do you analyze? And the processes he put in place, it was just amazing. I think the entire end-to-end process where based on your revenue forecast, based on, whatever, everything else will fall in place. The infrastructure, the recruitment, all that was all linked to it. And this is, we cannot work dynamically, it has to be processized. So each of them brought the different competencies in their own way. And that was very, very fascinating part. Another very interesting thing about Infosys, which people, when they came from outside, used to get shocked. They used to say in any discussion, unless there has been a fight, the decision is not taken. So for every decision taken, there has to be a fight. And the reason is that somebody has to be, if somebody is proposing, there has to be an equal passionate opposition to it. Because then only you will understand the risks of doing something. So, people will actually, you could see that founders at times within them, and then of course later on many of us, will start taking different sides to create that. So Vaad Vivad has to be there. But it can never get personal. And once the decision is taken, everybody's on it, fully aligned. So when people used to come from outside, I remember the first time I went into a discussion, and there are these guys fighting. And I'm shocked. The founders are fighting. What's going to happen? Okay. But there has to be a fight.
Wow. This is so insightful, and I believe, we can learn a lot from you. But you were telling that you're reading Mahabharat these days. Tell us something about when you're passionate about leadership. Tell us some leadership lessons that you're picking up from Mahabharat, sir.
So I think first is Mahabharat should not be read as a story. Mahabharat should be, so the way the Puranas are, is that they say, actually this is something which exists within you. So if you actually read Mahabharat, not as assume that all these characters exist within you, you will actually start relating to a lot of things inside that character. And you will start understanding. So I will not say as much of leadership per se as human behavior. Right? Of course, you cannot, to become a good leader, you have to understand your behavior. You have to understand others' behavior. And Mahabharat is a fascinating compilation of the human behavior. So I'll give you one or two examples when I was going through it. Before the Pandavas go on that 1 year incognito, right? Sanyadvasa.
14 plus 8 था, 13 plus 1 था वो.
It was 12 plus 1.
12 plus 1, okay.
The 13th year.
13th year.
They had this one Brahmin who is telling them, what does it mean to live under a king? Now, you suddenly realize these guys have always been kings.
Kings,
Yes, they're living in the forest and whatever, but people knew they're kings,
Right.
right? And they were being treated. Now they have to let go and work under a king. And this talk about what it should be. And I'm reading that and that says, you know what? If you remove the word king and put the word boss, it remains the same. It's a extreme good treatise
Right.
on what does it mean to work under a boss. But look at it. When they are working in that 1 year, and that's when you realize what it is, that so much of you is defined by your identity. You have been identified a lot by your identity. Where you were born, whose child you were, where you went and studied, and a lot of who you are. Now here they are going for 1 year, where their identity has been taken away from them.
Null.
So what are you? You are just by yourself. Now you're true yourself.
Right.
And that is why that entire 1 year becomes such a fascinating period. Because you realize when everything else has been taken away, and that is the biggest learning period, that how do you discover true yourself? And you discover your true yourself when you take away that, because the world is recognizing you. Otherwise,
Because
of
those,
because of all your linkages, because of everything else. So, you go through many of these chapters, and there's this whole discussion, which I've been just reading, which is on why punishment is important.
Why is it important?
This is because without the fear of punishment, things don't happen. And actually, if you say it's a reality,
Right.
a lot of things happen because of the fear of punishment. So this entire thing is all about why fear of punishment is very important.
And where is it coming from in Mahabharat? Give us that.
So this is a very interesting thing. This is after the war has been won. Now Yudhishthira is saying, what use is this kingdom?
Chala gaya?
Chala gaya. And he says, I am feeling miserable. I want to now go and become an ascetic.
Right.
And then everybody else is speaking to him.
Ki bhai, aise
What is your dharma? And saying your dharma was to fight, your dharma is to rule. And within that, he says you had to do this because they had to be punished for what they have done.
Right.
And they have meant the punishment. And it's important that world knows that this happens, right? So what you were doing was your duty. And that is where this whole thing comes. And how it says that there has to be, yes, there is destiny. But destiny, there has to be a bias for action. It repeatedly keeps on coming. That without action, there is nothing. So if you go through Mahabharat, and the main thing, of course, is there's a person I've been working with whose interpretation is these 5 Pandavas are nothing but 5 different kinds of powers which reside within each individual. And you actually relate a lot to that the leadership ultimately is about managing power and how do you deal with power. And this whole book, the epic is actually the story of power. That what happens when you are scared of losing the power, when you have the power and you don't know what to do with it, and how to use it properly. It's, people have, like, for example, with Karna, they say many things, right?
Right.
I mean, there's such a popular character, Bichara Karna. And after some time you read and says, he was letting himself being taken for a ride, right? So why was he doing it? And then you realize that in world, many people let this happen to them.
Right.
So why are you being Karna? Why are you being a, this great sacrifice person? Whom did it help? It didn't help his friend Duryodhana.
Right.
Whereas if he had actually used his full potential,
To convince.
he didn't use the power he had.
Right.
He didn't use the influence he had in a right way. So you realize, you start understanding, Bhishma never used the power he had, right? He deliberately took the power himself, right? He had power. He had a lot of moral power out there. He never used it. And that is equally wrong. Not using the power at right time is as wrong as misusing the power.
Wow. This is so insightful, and I believe we can have our next episode completely on learnings from Mahabharata. But thanks a lot for doing this, sir.